When a Puritan family gets a little too cozy with their goat, things start to get witchy. The first scene we see is this man, William, and his family being banished for breaking the laws of the land, I guess. He has a wife, Catherine, and 4 kids. Thomason, Caleb, and a set of twins, Mercy and Jonas. They all make their way out of the community. William didn't even beg for once because he insisted he did nothing wrong. You gotta love a man who always stands his ground. So he's banished, but he leaves with his pride still intact. The next day we see him and his family just kneel together and raise their hands to the sky. So, some background. These guys are Christians from England in the 17th century, and in fact the reason they were banished was down to some religious disagreement. Anyway, William and his family have now settled in a secluded land, and they've obviously been here a while as we see that Catherine has given birth to another child, their 5th, Samuel. Slow down. We now see Thomason praying to God for forgiveness while things are happening all around the house. After her prayer, her mother hands Samuel over to her and she's now playing peekaboo with him outside. It's all going alright until she opens her eyes and she can't find her brother anymore. She immediately starts screaming his name and looking everywhere for him. Then we see a woman dressed in black carrying the baby and making her way through the woods. Now we see Samuel being laid down by this mystery woman and she carefully and gently inspects him with a knife. Next thing, she's outside pounding something with a pestle. Goodness gracious, don't tell me that's the baby she's pounding like that. What in the world am I watching? She goes on to take the contents from the mortar and rub it around her body. Next we see Thomason having a nightmare, so Caleb goes and wakes her up. He puts on his shoes and goes out to meet his dad, who tells him that so much time has passed and they can't keep searching. His conclusion is that it's a wolf that took Samuel and they just have to try and put that behind them now. For real, they had enough siblings anyway. Already they have other problems on their hands. A blight has affected their crops, so now they have to go into the woods and hunt animals to eat. Caleb reminds his dad that he and mom forbade them from stepping foot in the woods, but William says their harvest cannot last the winter, so they have to. William then says, "We will conquer this wilderness. It will not consume us." And they head into the woods. This is sure to go swimmingly. Meanwhile, back at home, Catherine is still weeping and praying. That's how she has been for days now. Thomason goes to peep on her mom and you can tell that it breaks her heart to see her like that, but she leaves and heads out to go fetch some water. Back in the woods, Caleb is now asking his dad why he and mom have refused to even mention Samuel's name since his disappearance, but William manages to calm his son down. He also reveals to his son that he traded Catherine's silver cup for hunting supplies, but warns his son not to speak of this to her. He says he'll tell her himself when she's done grieving. Back home, Thomason retrieves an egg from the poultry, and it falls from her hand and cracks open. Come on, those things are expensive these days. The boys, by the way, finally find a hare. Just as William is about to clap it, he somehow injures himself. Now back at the house, the twins are really tormenting the family's goat, Black Phillip. They're chasing him all around the house, and you can tell that the poor goat has had enough of this, and now looks like he's ready to fight back. But William arrives right in time and puts Black Phillip back in the pen. He falls in the process, and what will the kids do? They laugh. Catherine now comes out and she has words for everybody. She asks William why he just disappeared this morning, but it's Thomason who gets most of the tongue lashing. Catherine is asking her why she didn't look after her younger siblings. She now tells her to go and tend to her father. Catherine is still mad at William, so Caleb steps in and tries to cover up for his dad by telling her that they went to find apples. He says he thought he saw apples in the valley, and dad didn't tell her before leaving because he wanted it to be a surprise to cheer her up. She comes and lovingly touches Caleb's face and says it's all cool. She just doesn't want him going into the woods. William now goes to cut up some wood while Caleb goes to the brook to fetch some water for his mother. He meets Thomason at the brook washing dad's clothes, and she tries to cheer him up. While they're playing, they hear a strange noise coming from the farm. You can see the fear in their eyes at first, but they soon find out that it's only Mercy. She comes in play acting and says she's the witch of the woods, but then she gets serious and starts saying different things. She says Thomason let a witch take Sam, and then goes on to say that she has seen the witch in the woods in her cloak. Caleb says it's a wolf that took Sam, but Mercy insists it was a witch. Thomason now cuts in and tells Mercy that she's right. A witch indeed took Sam, and that she, Thomason that is the witch. She starts walking towards Mercy trying to scare her with tales about how her spirit slips away from her body when she sleeps and dances with the devil. We're all guilty of taunting our younger siblings with all sorts of stories, and WWE moves in my case, but we all have to admit that this is taking things a little too far, right? But you see, Thomason doesn't stop. She's enjoying this a little too much. She goes on saying that the devil asked her to bring him an unbaptized baby, so she offered Sam to him. She tells Mercy that she can make anybody vanish, and she'll make her disappear if she gets on her nerves. The little girl is shaken, so shaken that her older brother telling her it's all lies does nothing to calm her down. Thomason now pounces on her and tells her she wants to eat her flesh, and she'll do it if she ever says a word of this to their parents. At this point, Caleb intervenes. She's doing a little bit too much. He gets Thomason off the little girl and Mercy immediately runs away. Caleb now confronts Thomason, asking her why she said all of that to Mercy. She tells him to leave her and even encourages him to go tell their parents what just happened. She doesn't want any pity, so Caleb leaves. Later that night, at the dinner table, Catherine asks Thomason where her silver cup is. She mentions it was passed down to her by her father. Thomason says she didn't touch it, so Catherine sarcastically asks if the wolf took that too. I wonder why William didn't just own up now. What does he do instead? He calls for fasting tomorrow. Oh, come on, man. You're just gonna watch your daughter take the fall for you? I know we're all scared of our wives and girlfriends, but this scared? Come on, man. Anyway, Thomason is now sent out to tend to the goat who has been bleating, and when she gets to the pen, she sees the hair which William failed to clap earlier. But we quickly cut to the parents. Catherine is on her knees, rounding off prayers before she joins William. William is now comforting her, and the conversation now veers into sending Thomason to go serve another family. Catherine calls the kids' names to be sure they're asleep, but they stay quiet, even though they're awake and can hear everything. William is not in support of it, but Catherine is insisting in tears. Very early the next morning, Caleb is tending to the horse and preparing to go out when Thomason walks in and asks him what's going on. He tells her to go back to sleep and keep quiet about what she has seen. He says he's going into the woods, but will be back by midday. She tells him to take her with him, if not she'll wake the parents, so he reluctantly agrees. Now we see them in the woods, Thomason on the horse, Caleb on the foot, and their dog in front. They're telling stories to each other when they spot the same hare from the last time. The dog, Fowler, chases after the hare, and Caleb immediately chases after the dog. The horse meanwhile is really spooked, so he just turns 360 degrees and throws Thomason off, knocking her out cold. Now we see Catherine, William, and the twins shouting Thomason and Caleb's names and looking for them. Caleb too is shouting Thomason's name in the woods as he walks around looking for her, but he finds instead is Fowler. But Fowler has been clapped. Oh no! Elsewhere, Thomason is just regaining consciousness and she can hear her dad's voice shouting their names, so she starts running towards the sound of the voice. Caleb though seems to be running in the opposite direction, deeper into the woods. He finds the hare and begins chasing it again. Thomason has now found her dad. They hug and he asks her where her brother is, and immediately we cut to Caleb approaching this pretty lady who seems to be attracting him. Now I know I don't get girls, but I'm never trusting a beautiful lady in the woods. I mean, what would such a baddie be doing in the middle of the forest? And I'm right to not trust her because just now, we see this lady pull a confused looking Caleb close before she grabs his head with her hand. From that hand I can tell she's the witch. Later that night, Catherine is scolding Thomason while William is preparing to go in search of Caleb, and he's going in spite of protests from his wife and kids. But before he goes, and while Catherine is still scolding Thomason, William confesses that he took her father's cup and sold it. He apologizes to Catherine and Thomason. Since he's already confessing, he goes ahead to also confess that it was he who took Caleb to the woods yesterday to hunt. That one probably hurts more because it feels like that's what put the idea in Caleb's head to go out into the woods today too. Catherine walks out in anger and is really lashing out at William. William follows her, promising to find Caleb, but she's not even listening to any of that. She thinks he'll only go out and get himself clapped. As William is trying to calm her down, she strikes him in the face, Will Smith style, and just breaks down. Now they're all back in the house. Thomason is helping her dad stop the bleeding from his nose. She then asks to step outside to tend to the goat and her mother lets her go. That turns out to be the right decision as she spots Caleb outside in his birthday suit. They immediately take him inside and tend to him. In doing that, Catherine makes a cut on his face while praying, and Thomason collects his blood in a bowl. Why she did that? I do not know. The next morning, Mercy is back at it again with her smart mouth. She says Black Phillip told her that Thomason made Caleb sick by putting the devil in him. Thomason says she'll never hurt Caleb or any of them, but Mercy doesn't believe that, and you can understand why. 4 letters. PTSD. She tells her that their parents will eventually find out what Thomason asks. That you're a witch, Jonas says. Nah, just switch the first letter to a B, then you'll be on the money. Thomason doesn't seem to pay too much mind to them. She just focuses on milking the goat in front of her. But as she's doing that, something strange happens. Spaghetti juice starts coming out of the udder instead of milk. Everybody's shocked to see that. Back inside the house, we see Catherine praying over Caleb when William comes in. She tells her husband that all this has to be witchcraft, but William thinks the idea is ridiculous. He tells her that they'll hunt to the plantation tomorrow to find Thomason a good family, and Caleb a doctor who'll tell them if this is natural or not. But Catherine is still throwing a tantrum, so William just straight up asks her what she wants. She says she wants to be home. Now she's crying and apologizing for how she has been acting since Sam's disappearance. She says since she lost her little boy, her heart has turned to stone. She used to feel the love of Christ so much before, but since Sam, she doesn't anymore, no matter how much she prays, and she's not sure she can feel that same measure of love ever again. Later, while the entire family is outside doing one thing or another, they hear a scream from inside and immediately run in to check on Caleb. He's murmuring some things and really shivering. After screaming for a bit, his mouth seals up so William has to pry it open, and when he does, Caleb vomits a rotten apple. As soon as the twins see that, they point to Thomason and accuse her of being the person who bewitched Caleb and stole Sam. Of course, Thomason denies all of this, but her parents are not so sure whom to believe. William now tells Thomason to get on her knees, and goes on to ask her some questions. He asks her if she loves the Bible and prayer, and she says yes. Oh, you love the Bible? Name every verse. Anyway, William instructs all of them to pray for Caleb, but the twins now say they can't remember the Lord's Prayer. At first it looks like they're just messing around, but then they start convulsing and Caleb starts convulsing too. His parents and older sister now join hands together and pray the Psalm 23 prayer together, and then calms him. It's all smiles in the room now. Caleb now declares his love for Christ with a big smile on his face, something his parents must really enjoy seeing. But then he ends his little speech by asking Christ to take him to his lap, and he just lays back down and dies peacefully. Rip in peace. Catherine starts weeping and shouting at Thomasin. Thomasin runs out and William quickly follows her and consoles her. Then he begins to say things that make Thomasin believe that he thinks she's a witch. So she gets up from his embrace and confronts him. He thinks she's the reason for what he has just seen, and he tells her that Christ can undo the bargain she has made with the devil, if only she tell the truth. But Thomasin just keeps insisting that she hasn't made any bargain, and then turns around and starts confronting her father about wanting to sell her, making her take the blame for what he did until it was too late, and taking Caleb to the woods. She goes on calling her father hypocrite and accusing him of allowing his wife to be his master, Sam. But she's not yet done with him. She's still roasting her dad, telling him he can't hunt and can't bring crops to yield. William has now had enough, so he grabs her and throws her to the ground, calling her a witch yet again. Thomasin now tells him that it's the twins he should actually be looking at because they communicate with Black Phillip every day. She goes on to call Black Phillip Lucifer and says he's the one bewitching the farm. Then she points out that time that Mercy called herself the Witch of the Woods. At this point, William just grabs Thomasin and drags her into the house, throws her to the ground, and tells her to tell her mother what she just told him. She does. Then William walks over to where the twins are lying down and screams at them to wake up, but they don't. At this point, William is so confused. He obviously doesn't know who the culprit is, so he takes all three of his kids and seals them in the goat's house, and says they'll head back to the plantation the following day. In the goat house, Thomasin asks the twins if they're witches. They say they're not, and asks her the same thing. She says she's not either. Then she asks them if Black Phillip really speaks to them, but they don't reply. Later that evening, we see William and Catherine burying Caleb. Catherine goes into the grave to lie with her son one last time. At night, William is cutting up wood and blaming himself and his pride for everything that has happened. He's now asking God for forgiveness, asking him to punish him but spare his children. Thomasin is observing him from the pen as he takes dirt from the floor and puts it in his mouth while he prays and cries. Meanwhile, inside, Catherine is hallucinating. She's seeing an apparition of Caleb holding Samuel, and Caleb now tells her she can see them often and asks her if she'll take a look at a book. She tells him to hold on a bit because she needs to feed Samuel, but as it turns out, that's not Samuel. It's a raven who's pecking at her. While that is happening, the children in the pen can now see the witch drinking blood from the goat's udder. She turns around to look at them and they start screaming. The next morning, William wakes up and goes outside the house, and you can see that there's blood on Catherine's dress from the raven last night. Anyway, William looks at the pen, which is now destroyed, and can see that the goats have been disemboweled, and Thomasin is lying there near unconscious. The twins, however, are nowhere in sight, but before he can even properly process what has happened, Black Phillip attacks him with his horns, leaving him bloody, with blood pouring out of his mouth. William picks up an axe and looks ready to attack Black Phillip, but the goat doesn't even give him a chance. He drives his head into the man yet again and sends him crashing down for good. Thomasin sees this and screams. She slowly stands up and approaches her father, but before she can even make contact with him, Catherine grabs her by the head and pulls her away. She's asking Thomasin where the twins are and accusing her of bewitching Caleb and William. She's attacking her daughter while blaming all the evil on her. So Thomasin picks a knife nearby and clamps her mother with it in self-defense. But Catherine is still going on, trying to go all 50 shades of grey on her. So Thomasin claps her a few more times. She does that and just holds on to her for a few seconds before pushing her away and standing up. Thomasin now goes inside and sleeps off at the table. She's woken up later that night by a chiming sound, so she goes out to check what it is. It's from the pen. She sees Black Phillip outside and she follows him in and urges him to speak to her like he did to Jonas and Mercy. The goat remains quiet, so she turns around to leave, but as she turns, the goat asks her what she wants. Yes, in a human voice. I mean, you should have known the goat was human all this time. His real name is Michael Jordan, for crying out loud. Keep up. Anyway, Thomasin then asks his supernatural goat what he can give, and he asks her if she wants a life of luxury and to see the world. She asks what he wants from her in return, so Black Phillip shows her a book, tells her to sign her name there, and tells her to remove her socks. Black Phillip, by the way, has now turned into a human man with a Chicago Bulls jersey. See, I told you. Okay, actually he's not wearing that, but he's actually a man now, and he puts his hand around her shoulder and tells her he'll guide her hand to write her name. Now we see Thomasin walking into the woods with Black Phillip, back to being a goat, following her. She arrives at a bonfire. A bunch of witches are making incantations around the fire. Shortly after she arrives, the witches begin to levitate and she joins them all laughing maniacally. Moral of the story? What kind of a girl name is Thomasin?